Hello, and welcome to the channel. This is an introductory video showing some of the goals and the format in which I'll be presenting the material on this channel. This slide just shows some of the goals for the channel. The main overarching goal is to give some foresight as to what to expect if anyone's unfamiliar with a sport, whether you're the coach for the sport, a skills coach, or a strength and conditioning coach, an athlete, whether you're an amateur, a professional, or a recreational athlete. You may not know some of the work or rest periods or other components, movements, things like that involved with the sport you'd like to play or participate in. So I would like to help with disseminating some of that information and planning as well. Um, a good example and my own example is I coached youth rugby, but I had very little experience playing rugby. So I didn't have many I didn't have many material, a lot of material to go off of. It was hard to find materials. So without actually playing the sport, I didn't really know how to set up and a proper like season for the kids and everything. So it was sort of trial by fire, and it was good and bad, but it would have been better if I had a little bit more of a solid plan. And also, on top of the goals as well, is some insight into the performance and fatigue management. So even if you are a coach, or it doesn't matter, strength conditioning coach or whatever, you may not understand or you may not be accounting fully for some of the fatigue. So say you really want to run your guys or girls, or whatever, your athletes, you want to run them real hard one day, well, the next day they're going to need a break, or they may not be ready for a few more days, or you may overwork them and then they have a game coming up or something, or they have testing. So you have to account for some of these things and not just say, oh, well, it was like that when I did it, so you're going to do it too. That's not exactly the greatest mindset going into some sports. This shows some of the material that I would like to cover on the channel. I'm not sure how I'll present every section. I may mix up maybe a PowerPoint for one section, and I was thinking of using something like Doodly for another section. I'm not sure yet on what I'll do, but I would like to learn how to do multiple things and present in multiple ways. Another thing that I'll add to that I didn't put on the slide are injuries. Even though each sport has sort of its own set of like common injuries, there's also, I mean, injuries that are not unique but common through every sport. So if you, let's say like a non-contact ACL tear in soccer isn't going to be much different than a non-contact ACL tear in any other sport, basketball, baseball, whatever. It's the how it's repaired and how it's planned for in terms of getting someone back into play, returning to sport, and all that is what makes a difference. That would be covered in the sporting aspect. But the actual injury, the timeline for recovery, how the tissue's repaired, the techniques, surgery, whatever, that would be covered in the similar injuries of sport and things like that. Also within that similar movement or actions would be like running, jumping. Here's my example of throwing. So like say like baseball, throwing can be very similar in baseball, and also spiking a volleyball is very similar, and a tennis serve is very similar. So some of these actions I might not, for time's sake, I may not go over in the sport itself, and I might just keep its own video, its own section about maybe throwing or overhead or running or jumping or something along those lines, and show how it's not so much unique, but it's in every sport and you can train it very similar to get the same effect and not have to keep trying to reinvent the wheel every time for everyone. This shows the outline for the sports section. It's going to be in a PowerPoint style, but I'll have like many sports. So I'll have basketball, baseball, football, golf, like whatever the sport is, it doesn't matter. I'm going to try to fit as many as I can. The first video of the sports will probably be like, the beginning of one section for the sport will be a general video. The first video will be general. And then every subsequent video after that for the sport will be more in depth, showing what you can do at various levels for various ages and the training plans and things like that. That's about it. As you see, you have the overview, the analysis, and the periodization. Now in the analysis, the asterisk marks there is skill in sport, common injuries, and testing. So those are all very repetitive. You're going to see very similar skills in sport, common injuries, and also the testing. You know, like if you're using the 40-yard dash to test someone's speed, and you want to test speed in 5 different sports, are you going to use different speed tests if you don't have to? So that's kind of where that like repetitive nature comes in. But at the same time, it needs to be specific towards the sport and the person. So that will be gone into or gone over, and I'll elucidate more information about that in more in-depth videos of the sport. But the first videos will be at a general level. This is a general overview of some of the areas that need to be accounted for when making an annual training plan. Not one area is more or less important than another. They're pretty much all equal. The difference will be individual. So someone maybe needs more work with a diet. Maybe someone needs to train more or less frequent, longer or shorter in duration. Maybe they've been training for 20 years and they're very bored with squatting for, an hour or such, or whatever your training plan is for the person. Also intensity and volume, same thing. So that's it. There's a lot going into it, but it comes down to individual aspects of the person and also aspects of the sport. So definitely very specific. And that's all. So this pretty much wraps up the video. I hope you enjoyed.
The secret of steel has always carried with it a mystery. You must learn its riddle, Conan. You must learn its discipline. For no one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts. This you can trust.